She kissed a stranger to hide from her creditors. Now the Italian Mafia boss is obsessed with the black bartender. Yolanda Ferris pressed herself against the brick wall outside Vesper's Lounge in downtown Atlanta, her bartender's apron still damp with spilled whiskey. The black tank top underneath clung to her skin from running 3 blocks straight. Marcus's guys had found her again. 2 of them waiting by her car after her shift, another watching the front entrance. She owed Marcus $12,000. 3 months behind on payments for the product she'd been moving through her cousin's network to pay for nursing school. The same cousin who got arrested last week, leaving her with no supply and no way to make the money back. A black Escalade rolled past, slowing near the alley. Yolanda's chest tightened. Without thinking, she grabbed the first person walking by, a man in a charcoal suit stepping out of the private entrance next door. She pulled him close and kissed him hard against the wall, using his broad shoulders to block herself from view. His body went rigid for half a second before his hand found her waist, pulling her closer. The Escalade kept moving. When she broke away, she found herself staring into dark eyes that belonged to a face she'd only seen in whispered warnings. Idilio Monaldo. The Italian who ran half of Atlanta's underground. What happens when you accidentally use the most dangerous man in Georgia as your hiding spot? Hey, welcome to my channel. Please hit subscribe if you are watching for the first time and let me know what city you're watching from. Now let's get into this. The silence that followed the kiss felt heavier than the alley itself. Yolanda's heart hammered against her ribs, not from the run anymore, but from the man whose hand still rested on her waist. Idilio Monaldo didn't move. He just watched her, his expression unreadable, those dark eyes scanning her face like he was reading a code. Marcus's guys, she said, her voice barely a whisper. She pulled away, creating a few inches of space that felt like miles. They were waiting for me. Idilio didn't look toward the street. He didn't seem worried. He just tilted his head slightly, his gaze dropping to her mouth before coming back to her eyes. You chose a dangerous shield, Yolanda. The use of her name sent a fresh chill through her. He knew who she was. Of course he did. Everyone in the service industry downtown knew who Idilio Monaldo was, even if they only saw him in glimpses, stepping into black cars, moving through the back of high-end restaurants, always with a quiet intensity that made people step out of his way. I didn't have a choice, she said, her voice firmer now. She needed to get her bearings. I need to go. She made to step past him, but his hand moved from her waist to her arm, a grip that was firm but not painful. You can't go out there. Not yet. I can't stay here with you. Why not? He asked, and the question wasn't threatening. It was curious. You already kissed me. That was a mistake. Was it? He took a half step closer, forcing her to look up at him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, the charcoal suit tailored perfectly to his muscular frame. There were tattoos peeking from the collar of his shirt, dark ink against his skin. He looked like he could break someone in half without breaking a sweat. It felt pretty real to me. Yolanda swallowed hard. She needed to think. She needed to get to her car, figure out a new route home, maybe call her sister. But her sister was already worried, already stressed about the nursing school tuition that was due next month. She couldn't add to that. Look, she said, trying to pull her arm away. I appreciate the help, but I need to handle this myself. Idilio's grip tightened just enough to keep her there. You're in trouble. You're scared. And you just used me to hide from it. He leaned in, his voice dropping lower. That makes you my business now. I don't want to be your business. Too late. He finally released her arm, but only to reach into his pocket and pull out a sleek black phone. He tapped the screen a few times, then held it to his ear. Giovanni. The black Escalade, 2 men, one watching the front of Vesper's. Send a car to pick them up. Bring them to the warehouse. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and pocketed the phone, his eyes never leaving Yolanda's face. You have 2 options. You can walk out of this alley and deal with Marcus's men yourself. Or you can come with me, and I'll handle it. Handle it how? She asked, her voice tight. However I need to. Yolanda looked at the mouth of the alley. She could hear the distant sound of traffic, the low hum of the city at night. Out there, Marcus's men were waiting. She had no weapon, no backup, no way to fight them off. She was a bartender, not a fighter. She was a student, not a criminal. But Idilio Monaldo was both. Why would you help me? She asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. What do you want? Idilio's lips curved into the faintest smile. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who knew exactly what he wanted and wasn't afraid to take it. I want you to come with me. Right now. We can discuss terms later. The terms. That's what this was about. He was a businessman, after all. Nothing was free. Yolanda's mind raced. She could refuse, walk out, and face Marcus's men. She might get hurt, or worse. She could go with Idilio, but she had no idea what he would demand in return. But then she remembered the way his hand had felt on her waist. The way he'd pulled her closer instead of pushing her away when she kissed him. The way he'd looked at her afterward, not with anger, but with something that looked a lot like interest. She was in deep trouble. She needed a way out. And Idilio Monaldo was offering one. Okay, she said, the word tasting like ash in her mouth. I'll come with you. Idilio nodded, his expression unreadable again. Good choice. He turned and started walking toward the street, not looking back to see if she was following. He knew she would. Yolanda took a deep breath, then followed him out of the alley and into the night. A sleek black car pulled up to the curb just as they reached the street. A man in a dark suit opened the back door. Idilio slid in first, then held the door open for Yolanda. She hesitated for only a second before climbing in beside him. The door closed, sealing them in the quiet interior of the car. As it pulled away from the curb, Yolanda caught a glimpse of the black Escalade still parked down the street. She watched it shrink in the window as they drove away. She was safe for now. But she had just traded one danger for another. Idilio settled back in his seat, his arm resting along the back of the seat behind her. He wasn't touching her, but his presence was overwhelming in the small space. Where do you live? He asked. Why? I need to know where to drop you off. Yolanda stared at him. You're not keeping me? I never said I was keeping you. He turned his head to look at her, his dark eyes intense. I said I'd handle Marcus's men. That's what I'm doing. Once they're dealt with, you're free to go. Just like that. Just like that. He paused. But I want something in return. There it was. The catch. What? Your name. Your story. Why a bartender is moving product for a drug dealer to pay for nursing school. Yolanda's jaw tightened. That's my business. It became my business when you kissed me in an alley to hide from your creditors. He leaned closer, his voice low. I want to know who I'm protecting. Yolanda looked away, out the window at the passing city lights. She didn't want to tell him. She didn't want anyone to know the details of her desperation. But he had already saved her from Marcus's men. He had already driven her away from the danger. Fine, she said, her voice quiet. I'll tell you. But not here. Idilio nodded. Fair enough. We'll go to my place. You can talk there. Yolanda's stomach clenched. Going to Idilio Monaldo's home was a terrible idea. But she didn't have a better one. Not yet. The car drove through the city, taking turns she didn't recognize. They left the downtown area, heading toward the more residential parts of the city. Eventually, they pulled into a gated community, the kind with large houses and privacy hedges. The car stopped in front of a modern two-story house with dark windows. Idilio got out first, then held the door open for her again. Yolanda stepped out into the cool night air, looking up at the house. It was imposing, but not flashy. It looked like a place where someone could disappear. "Come on," Idilio said, walking toward the front door. He unlocked it with a key and pushed it open, stepping inside. He didn't turn on the main lights, just a few soft lamps that illuminated the entryway. The inside was clean, minimalist, with dark furniture and expensive-looking art on the walls. Yolanda stood in the doorway, suddenly unsure. This was a mistake. She should leave. But where would she go? Marcus's men were still out there, and now Idilio knew about them. If she left, he might not stop them. She stepped inside. Idilio closed the door behind her, the sound echoing in the quiet house. "Kitchen," he said, walking past her. "You want water? Coffee?" "Water is fine." He disappeared into the kitchen. Yolanda took a moment to look around. The house felt lived in but not cluttered. There were books on a shelf, a few framed photos on a side table. She saw a picture of a woman who looked like Idilio, his mother maybe, and another of a younger Idilio with a group of men, all of them looking serious. He returned with 2 glasses of water, handing one to her. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a leather sofa in the living room. Yolanda sat on the edge of the sofa, her body tense. Idilio sat in a chair across from her, not too close, but not far away either. He took a sip of his water, watching her over the rim of the glass. "Start talking," he said. Yolanda took a deep breath. She had to tell him. She had to give him something to make him understand why she was in this mess. "My sister," she began. "She's younger than me. She's in college, studying to be a nurse. Our parents aren't in the picture. It's just me and her. I'm her guardian, in a way." Idilio nodded, his expression unreadable. "Go on." "The tuition is expensive. I work 2 jobs, bartending at Vespers and another place on weekends. But it wasn't enough. My cousin, he had a way to make extra money. Moving product. He said it was low risk, just small amounts. I could make enough to pay for her tuition and maybe even save for my own school." "How much did you move?" "Enough to pay for 2 semesters. But then he got arrested. The supplier cut off the supply, but I still owed money for the last batch I had. Marcus is the one who fronted the product. Now he wants his money, and I don't have it." "How much do you owe?" $12,000. Idilio's expression didn't change. "And you thought you could pay it off bartending?" "I was trying. I was putting every extra dollar toward it. But Marcus doesn't care about my schedule. He wants the money now." Idilio set his glass down on the coffee table. "And you didn't think to go to the police?" Yolanda let out a bitter laugh. "And tell them what? That I was moving drugs to pay for my sister's nursing school? They'd arrest me too. I'd lose my sister, my job, everything." Idilio nodded slowly. "You're right. They would." He leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled in front of him. He was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Yolanda watched him, her heart pounding. She had no idea what he was going to do. Finally, he spoke. "I'll handle Marcus. I'll make sure he never bothers you again." Yolanda's eyes widened. "You can do that?" "I can. But, what do you want in return?" Idilio's dark eyes met hers. "I want you to work for me." Yolanda's breath caught. "Work for you? How?" "Bartending. At one of my places. You're good at it, I hear. Vespers is a good spot, but it's not mine. I have a place downtown, a private club. I need a bartender who knows how to keep her mouth shut and her eyes open." Yolanda stared at him. "You want me to work for you? Like, for the mob?" Idilio's lips twitched. "I'm not asking you to move product. I'm asking you to pour drinks. The pay is better than Vespers. The tips are better. And you'll be under my protection. No one will touch you." Yolanda thought about it. working for Idilio Monaldo. It was dangerous. It was risky. But it was also a way out. A way to pay off her debt and keep her sister safe. "Okay," she said, her voice steady. "I'll work for you." Idilio nodded, a satisfied look on his face. "Good. You start tomorrow night. I'll have someone pick you up. And Yolanda?" "Yes. Welcome to my world." He stood up, the conversation clearly over. "You can stay here tonight. There's a guest room upstairs. I'll have someone bring you clothes and whatever else you need. Tomorrow, we'll deal with Marcus." Yolanda stood as well, feeling a mix of relief and fear. She was safe for now, but she had just stepped into a world she'd only heard about in whispers. As she followed him upstairs to the guest room, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The guest room at Idilio's house felt like a luxury prison. It had a king-sized bed with a crisp white duvet, a bathroom with a marble shower, and a window that looked out over a private garden. But the door didn't lock from the inside, and Yolanda knew that without a doubt. She spent the night staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus's men waiting by her car, then Idilio's dark eyes watching her in the alley. She had traded one cage for another, but at least this cage had better furniture. Morning came with a soft knock on the door. "Breakfast is in the kitchen," Idilio's voice came through the wood. "Clothes are on the chair. Be ready by noon." Yolanda sat up, her body stiff from a night of restless sleep. On the chair sat a folded black dress, a pair of sensible heels, and a small bag with toiletries. No underwear. She'd have to wear what she had from yesterday. She showered quickly, the hot water doing little to ease the tension in her shoulders. The dress fit perfectly, which was unsettling. It meant Idilio had known her size, or he'd had someone check. The heels were a size too small, just enough to be uncomfortable. In the kitchen, Idilio was already dressed in another charcoal suit, this one with a white shirt. He sat at the table, a tablet in front of him, scrolling through something. He didn't look up when she entered. "Coffee's on the counter," he said. "Eggs and toast are in the warmer." Yolanda poured herself a cup of black coffee and took a piece of toast. She didn't touch the eggs. She sat across from him, the silence stretching between them. "Where's your sister?" he asked, still looking at his tablet. "With our aunt." Indicator. "Is she safe there?" "For now. Marcus doesn't know about her. He only knows about me." Idilio finally looked up, his dark eyes locking onto hers. "He will know about her if he doesn't already. People like Marcus talk. They use leverage." Yolanda's stomach dropped. "You think he'd go after her?" "I think he's desperate for money. Desperate men do desperate things." He set the tablet aside. "We need to move her somewhere safe before we deal with Marcus." Yolanda's hands tightened around her coffee cup. "Where? I can't afford. I have a place. A safe house. It's secure. She can stay there until this is over. You can't just take her." "I'm not taking her. I'm offering protection." He stood up, walking to the counter to refill his coffee. "You have a choice, Yolanda. You can let me help you, or you can handle this alone. But if you choose alone, you're on your own with Marcus. And if he hurts your sister, that's on you." The words hit her like a slap. He was right. She was in over her head, and her sister was the only person she cared about. If Marcus went after her. "Okay," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Move her to the safe house." Idilio nodded. "I'll send a car. She'll be picked up within the hour. You need to call her, tell her to pack a bag and be ready. Tell her she's going on a trip with you for a few days." Yolanda pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling. She dialed her sister's number, her heart pounding. When her sister answered, Yolanda forced her voice to be calm. "Hey Mia. I need you to pack a bag. We're going on a trip for a few days. Just a quick getaway." Where are we going? Mia asked, her voice bright. Just somewhere safe. I'll explain later. A car will pick you up. Just trust me, okay? Okay, Yolanda. I trust you. Yolanda hung up, feeling a mix of relief and guilt. She had just lied to her sister and put her in the hands of a mob boss. Good, Idilio said, as if reading her mind. Now, we deal with Marcus. He walked to the front door and opened it. A black car was already waiting outside. Get in, he said. We're going to see Marcus. Yolanda's heart skipped a beat. You're taking me with you? You're part of this. You need to see how it ends. She followed him to the car, her mind reeling. She was about to see Idilio Minoldo in action. She was about to see how he handled men like Marcus. The drive was silent. They left the gated community and headed back toward downtown. But instead of going to the business district, they went to an industrial area on the outskirts of the city. The car pulled up to a warehouse that looked abandoned from the outside. Idilio got out, holding the door open for her. Stay close, he said. Don't talk unless I tell you to. Inside, the warehouse was anything but abandoned. It was clean, well-lit, and filled with men in dark suits. In the center of the room, two of Marcus's men were tied to chairs, looking terrified. A third man, older with greasy hair and a nervous smile, stood nearby. That had to be Marcus. Idilio walked straight to Marcus, his steps measured and confident. Marcus, he said, his voice calm. You've been bothering my new employee. Marcus's eyes darted between Idilio and Yolanda. I didn't know she was with you, Minoldo. I swear. You owe her money, Idilio said, ignoring the excuse. $12,000. It's not her debt, Marcus stammered. It's her cousin's. He owed me for product. She was just moving it. Idilio's expression didn't change. She was moving it. That makes it her debt. And now she works for me. That makes it my debt. He stepped closer, his voice dropping lower. I want you to forget about her. Forget about the money. And forget about her sister. Marcus's face paled. Her sister. You heard me. Idilio's hand moved, and suddenly a knife appeared in his hand, the blade catching the light. He didn't point it at Marcus. He just held it, turning it slowly. If I hear that you or anyone associated with you has gone near Yolanda or her sister, I will personally make sure you never see the sun again. Do you understand? Marcus nodded frantically. Yes. Yes, I understand. Good. Idilio turned to one of his men. Cut them loose. Get them out of here. The men moved quickly, cutting the ropes. Marcus and his guys scrambled to their feet, not looking back as they ran out of the warehouse. Idilio watched them go, his expression calm. He turned to Yolanda. It's done. Yolanda stared at him, her mouth slightly open. Just like that. Just like that. He walked toward her, his eyes intense. You're free of him. But you're still working for me. Why did you do that? She asked, her voice shaking. Why did you really help me? Idilio stopped in front of her, so close she could feel the heat from his body. I told you. You used me to hide. That makes you my business now. It's more than that, she said, her voice gaining strength. You could have just walked away. You could have told me to deal with it myself. But you didn't. Idilio's gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. You kissed me, he said, his voice low. You chose me. Out of everyone in that alley, you chose me. That's not something I forget. Yolanda's breath caught. So you're protecting me because I kissed you? I'm protecting you because I want to. He reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek. And because I think you want me to. Yolanda's heart hammered. She should pull away. She should tell him this was a mistake. But she didn't. Instead, she leaned into his touch, just slightly. Come on, he said, his hand dropping. We need to get you to the club. You start work tonight. He turned and walked toward the exit, not waiting for her. Yolanda took a deep breath and followed him. As they stepped back into the sunlight, she realized something. She was no longer just a bartender in trouble. She was Idilio Minoldo's employee. And maybe, just maybe, she was something more. The club was called The Vault. It was a private, members-only establishment in a converted bank building downtown, with velvet ropes, a doorman who checked IDs, and a clientele that didn't ask questions. Yolanda had heard of it, but she'd never been inside. It was the kind of place where the city's elite came to spend money and forget their problems. Idilio led her through the back entrance, past a kitchen that smelled of expensive food and into the main bar area. The space was dimly lit, with leather booths, a long marble bar, and a small stage where a jazz trio played softly. It felt exclusive, controlled and safe. You'll work from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m., Idilio said, his voice low as they walked. 5 nights a week. Your pay is double what you made at Vespers. Tips are yours to keep. No questions asked. Yolanda looked around, her eyes adjusting to the light. Who are the members? Businessmen, politicians, people with money. He stopped near the bar, where a man in a sharp suit was polishing glasses. This is Marco. He's the head bartender. He'll show you the ropes. Marco looked up, his eyes flicking to Idilio, then to Yolanda. He gave a slight nod. Welcome. Idilio turned to Yolanda. I have business to attend to. Marco will get you set up. Be ready for your first shift tonight. He paused, his dark eyes meeting hers. And Yolanda? Yes. Don't be late. He turned and walked away, disappearing through a door marked private. Yolanda watched him go, a strange mix of relief and anxiety settling in her chest. Marco set down his rag and walked around the bar. Come on, he said. Let me show you the setup. For the next hour, Marco walked her through the club. He showed her the inventory, the POS system, the rules. No mixing drinks on the house, no personal conversations with members, and absolutely no talking about what happened in the club. What happens in the vault stays in the vault, Marco said, his voice serious. Yolanda nodded, taking it all in. She was a quick learner, and bartending was second nature to her. But this place was different. The atmosphere was heavier, the silence between customers more pronounced. She could feel the weight of secrets in the air. Who owns this place? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Marco didn't look at her. The owner is a private investor. He likes his privacy. Idilio Minoldo. Marco's hands stilled for a fraction of a second. I didn't say that. Yolanda smiled faintly. You didn't have to. She spent the rest of the afternoon memorizing the menu and the layout. By the time her shift started at 8 p.m., she felt as ready as she could be. The first few hours were quiet. The members were polite, if distant. They ordered expensive drinks, tipped well, and didn't ask her name. Yolanda fell into her rhythm, the familiar motions of pouring, shaking, and serving calming her nerves. Then, at 11 p.m., Idilio walked in. He didn't come to the bar. Instead, he took a seat in a booth in the corner, his dark suit blending into the shadows. He didn't order a drink. He just watched her. Yolanda felt his gaze on her back as she worked. It was constant, unwavering. Every time she looked up, she found him looking at her. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't frowning. He was just watching. It made her skin prickle. It made her focus harder on her work, her movements more precise. She felt like she was performing, and he was the critic. When her shift ended at 2 a.m., the club was empty except for the staff. Marco handed her an envelope with her cash tips for the night. Idilio wants to see you in his office, he said. Yolanda's stomach tightened. She walked to the private door, knocked once, and waited. Come in, Idilio's voice came from inside. She opened the door and stepped into a small, luxurious office. Idilio sat behind a large desk, a laptop open in front of him. He didn't look up immediately. "How was your first night?" he asked, his eyes still on the screen. "Fine," Yolanda said. "The members are quiet. They're paying for discretion." He finally looked up, his dark eyes meeting hers. "You did well." Marco was impressed. Yolanda felt a flicker of pride. "Thank you." Idilio leaned back in his chair, his hands clasping behind his head. "Your sister is safe. She's at the safe house. She thinks you're on a work trip." Yolanda nodded, the guilt returning. "How long will she have to stay there?" "Until I'm sure Marcus won't come after you. A few days, maybe a week." He stood up and walked around the desk, stopping in front of her. "You're doing well, Yolanda. You're adapting." "Do I have a choice?" she asked, her voice sharper than she intended. Idilio's lips curved into a faint smile. "Not really." He reached out and tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so intimate, so unexpected, that Yolanda froze. His fingers lingered for a moment, warm against her skin. "You're safe here," he said, his voice low. "With me." Yolanda's breath caught. She wanted to pull away, but she didn't. She wanted to tell him this was wrong, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she just stood there, her heart pounding, as he looked at her with an intensity that made her feel seen in a way she never had before. "Go home," he said, dropping his hand. "Get some rest. Your sister will be back in a few days." Yolanda nodded, her legs feeling unsteady as she turned and walked out of the office. As she stepped into the cool night air outside the vault, she realized something. She was no longer just a bartender in trouble. She was Idilio Minoldo's employee. And every time he looked at her, she felt like she was something more. The next week passed in a blur of routine. Yolanda worked her shifts at the vault, moved between Idilio's house and the club, and called her sister every day. Mia was happy at the safe house, enjoying the break from school and the freedom to explore the nearby park. She had no idea she was in hiding. Yolanda kept her head down. She learned the rhythms of the club, the unspoken rules of the members, and the way Marco moved behind the bar like a ghost. She earned more in tips in 1 week than she had in a month at Vespers. The money was good. The safety was better. But the tension with Idilio was building. He was always there. Not in the club every night, but close. She'd see his car outside the house when she got home. She'd hear him on the phone in his office late at night. He'd ask about her shifts, about her sister, about her day. It was casual, almost normal, but it felt like a cage closing in. One evening, after her shift, Idilio was waiting for her in the kitchen. He was leaning against the counter, a glass of whiskey in his hand, his suit jacket off, his sleeves rolled up to reveal the tattoos on his forearms. "How was work?" he asked. "Fine," Yolanda said, pouring herself a glass of water. She was tired. Her feet ached. She wanted to go to bed. "You're quiet tonight," he observed. "I'm just tired." Idilio set his glass down and walked toward her. "You've been quiet all week. Is something wrong?" Yolanda turned to face him, her back against the counter. "I'm just adjusting." "Adjusting to what?" "To this." She gestured around the kitchen. "To living here. To working for you. To everything." Idilio's eyes narrowed slightly. "You don't like it here?" "It's not about liking it. It's about, I don't know. I feel like I'm in a bubble. A safe bubble, but a bubble nonetheless." Idilio took a step closer, his presence filling the space between them. "You're safe. That's what matters." "Is it?" Yolanda asked, her voice rising slightly. "Because I feel like I've traded one prison for another. I can't go back to my old life. I can't see my friends. I can't even tell my sister the truth. I'm living a lie, and you're the one who's pulling the strings." Idilio's expression didn't change. You agreed to this. I agreed because I was desperate. Because I had no other choice. And now you have a choice, he said, his voice low. You can walk out that door right now. You can go back to your apartment, back to Marcus, back to your old life. But you won't, because you know what's waiting for you there. Yolanda's jaw tightened. He was right. She was stuck, and he knew it. Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice softer now. Why are you really helping me? Idilio didn't answer immediately. He reached out, his hand cupping her cheek, his thumb brushing her skin. Because when you kissed me in that alley, you chose me. You saw me, and you chose me. No one else does that. Yolanda's breath caught. I was hiding. You were hiding, but you could have hidden behind anyone. You chose me. He leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. And I chose you back. Yolanda's heart hammered. She wanted to pull away, but she didn't. She wanted to tell him this was wrong, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she just stood there, her eyes closed, feeling the heat from his body, the warmth of his hand on her cheek. Yolanda, he whispered, his voice rough. I want you. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and undeniable. Yolanda's mind raced. This was a mistake. This was dangerous. This was everything she shouldn't want. But she did. She leaned in and kissed him. This time, it wasn't a desperate act to hide. It was a choice. Her choice. Idilio's arms wrapped around her, pulling her flush against him. The kiss deepened, turning from soft and tentative to hungry and demanding. Yolanda's hands found his shoulders, gripping the fabric of his shirt. His hands roamed her back, pulling her closer, his touch firm and possessive. They stumbled back against the counter, the glass of whiskey tipping over, spilling across the marble. Neither of them noticed. The world narrowed to the space between them, the heat of their bodies, the taste of whiskey and desire. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Yolanda's lips were swollen, her cheeks flushed. Idilio's dark eyes were blazing with intensity. You're mine, he said, his voice a low growl. Not because of the debt. Not because of the job. Because I want you, and you want me. Yolanda's mind screamed that this was a mistake, that she was crossing a line she could never uncross. But her body betrayed her. She nodded, her voice a whisper. Yes. Idilio's smile was dark and satisfied. He leaned in and kissed her again, softer this time, a promise of what was to come. As they stood there in the kitchen, the spilled whiskey slowly dripping onto the floor, Yolanda realized something. She was no longer just a bartender in trouble. She was Idilio Minoldo's woman. And she had just crossed a line that would change everything. The morning after their kitchen kiss, Yolanda woke up alone in her guest room. The memory of Idilio's hands on her body, his mouth on hers, was so vivid she could almost feel it. But the house was quiet. No sounds from downstairs. No note on the door. She showered and dressed in the clothes Idilio had provided, her mind racing. What did this mean? Was she now his girlfriend? His possession? Or was it just a moment of weakness, a mistake to be forgotten? When she went downstairs, Idilio was in the kitchen, dressed in a dark gray suit, drinking coffee. He looked up when she entered, his expression unreadable. Morning, he said, his voice calm. Morning, Yolanda replied, her voice tight. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. Yolanda poured herself coffee, her hands trembling slightly. You're off tonight, Idilio said, breaking the silence. Your sister is coming back. She'll be here by 5 p.m. Yolanda's eyes widened. Here? To your house? Yes. The safe house was temporary. She's safer here with you. Yolanda's chest tightened. You can't just bring her here. She doesn't know about you. She doesn't know about any of this. I'll explain it to her, Idilio said, as if it were simple. I'll tell her I'm a businessman, and you're working for me. She'll understand. She's 18, Idilio. She's not a child. She'll ask questions. Then answer them honestly. He set his coffee down and walked toward her. You're part of my world now, Yolanda. Your sister is part of it too. She's safer here than anywhere else. Yolanda's frustration bubbled over. You don't get to decide that. You don't get to decide what's best for my sister. Idilio's eyes darkened. I do. Because I'm the one who's protecting her. I'm the one who took care of Marcus. I'm the one who's keeping you both safe. You're keeping us safe by trapping us here. Yolanda's voice rose. I can't go back to my old life. I can't see my friends. I can't even tell my sister the truth about what happened with Marcus. Idilio stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. You're not trapped. You're protected. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. They stared at each other, the tension thick enough to cut. Yolanda's heart pounded. She was angry, scared, and confused. But beneath it all, there was a pull toward him she couldn't deny. Your sister will be here in a few hours, Idilio said, his voice dropping. You need to decide what you're going to tell her. And you need to decide what you're going to do about us. He turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving Yolanda alone with her thoughts. She spent the next few hours in a state of anxious preparation. She cleaned the guest room, made the bed, and tried to figure out how to explain to Mia that they were living with a mob boss. When the car pulled up at 5 p.m., Yolanda was waiting at the door. Mia stepped out, carrying a duffel bag, her face bright with excitement. Yolanda, she called, running toward her. This place is amazing. The safe house was so nice, but this is even better. Yolanda hugged her sister tightly, feeling a surge of relief and guilt. I'm glad you're here, she said, her voice thick. Mia pulled back, her eyes scanning the house. Who owns this place? Before Yolanda could answer, Idilio appeared in the doorway behind her. He had changed into a black shirt and dark jeans, looking less like a businessman and more like a regular guy. But there was nothing regular about the way he looked at Mia. Welcome, he said, his voice smooth. I'm Idilio. I'm a friend of Yolanda's. Mia's eyes widened. Oh, hi. She looked between Idilio and Yolanda, her expression curious. Are you two? We're working together, Yolanda said quickly, cutting her off. Idilio is my boss. Mia nodded, though she didn't look convinced. Okay. Well, thanks for letting us stay here. Of course, Idilio said. Come in. Let me show you your room. He led Mia into the house, Yolanda following behind. As they walked, Mia whispered to Yolanda, he's kind of intense. You have no idea, Yolanda muttered. Idilio showed Mia to a room down the hall from Yolanda's. It was a guest room, similar to hers, with a bed, a desk, and a window overlooking the garden. Mia dropped her bag and looked around, her face beaming. This is great. Thanks again, Idilio. You're welcome, he said. Make yourself at home. If you need anything, just ask. He turned to leave, but Mia stopped him. What kind of work do you do, Idilio? Yolanda's heart skipped a beat. Idilio's expression didn't change. I'm in the hospitality business. I own a few clubs and restaurants. Cool, Mia said, seemingly satisfied. And Yolanda works for you? At one of my clubs. She's a great bartender. Mia smiled at Yolanda. She's the best. She's been taking care of me since our parents left. Idilio's gaze softened slightly as he looked at Yolanda. I can see that. He left the room, leaving the sisters alone. Mia immediately turned to Yolanda, her eyes wide with curiosity. Okay, spill. What's going on with you and Idilio? He's clearly into you. Yolanda's face flushed. It's complicated. Complicated how? Yolanda took a deep breath. She had to tell her sister something, but not the whole truth. I got into some trouble with money. Idilio helped me out. In return, I'm working for him. That's all. Mia frowned. Trouble with money? What kind of trouble? Just debt. From school and stuff. It's handled now. Mia didn't look entirely convinced, but she nodded. Okay. Well, I'm glad we're safe here. And I'm glad you have someone like Idilio looking out for you. Yolanda forced a smile. Me too. She left Mia to settle in and went to find Idilio. She found him in his office, sitting behind his desk, looking at something on his laptop. Thank you, she said from the doorway. He looked up. For what? For bringing Mia here. For keeping her safe. Idilio stood up and walked toward her. She's your family. That makes her important to me too. Yolanda's heart fluttered. Why? Why are you doing all this for me? Idilio stopped in front of her, his dark eyes searching her face. Because you're mine. And I take care of what's mine. Yolanda's breath caught. The words were possessive, almost territorial. But they also felt like a promise. I don't know if I can be yours, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know if I can be part of this world. Idilio reached out and took her hand, his fingers lacing with hers. You already are. You just need to accept it. Yolanda looked down at their joined hands, then back up at his face. She was scared. She was confused. But she was also drawn to him in a way she couldn't explain. Okay, she said softly. I'll try. Idilio's lips curved into a small, genuine smile. It was the first time she'd seen him smile like that. That's all I ask. He squeezed her hand, then let go. I have to go out for a bit. There's food in the kitchen. You and Mia can order anything you want. I'll be back by midnight. He walked past her, leaving Yolanda alone in his office. She stood there for a long moment, her hand still warm from his touch. She was in deep. Deeper than she'd ever been. And she had no idea how to get out. The next few days settled into a strange, tense routine. Yolanda worked her shifts at the vault, Mia attended online classes from her room, and Idilio moved through the house like a shadow, present but not intrusive, always watching, always waiting. The kitchen kiss hung between them like a promise and a threat. Idilio didn't push for more, but his touches lingered. A hand on her shoulder as he passed her in the hallway. A look across the dinner table that made her stomach flip. He was giving her space to adjust, but the space itself felt like a cage. Mia, however, was oblivious. She loved the house, the safety, the fact that her sister was working for a successful businessman. She'd ask Idilio questions about his work, and he'd answer with vague but charming responses. I own restaurants. I invest in real estate. He was good at it. He made it sound normal. But Yolanda knew the truth. She saw the men who came to the house late at night, their cars parked in the driveway, their conversations hushed. She heard the phone calls Idilio took in his office, his voice dropping to a low, serious tone. She knew he wasn't just a businessman. One evening, after her shift, Yolanda found Idilio in his office. He was on the phone, his back to the door. She paused in the doorway, listening. No, he said, his voice cold. I don't care what he says. The deal is off. If he comes near my territory again, I'll handle it myself. He hung up and slammed the phone down, turning around. His eyes widened slightly when he saw her. How long have you been standing there? He asked, his voice tight. Long enough, Yolanda said, stepping into the room. What deal? What territory? Idilio's jaw tightened. It's business. Nothing you need to worry about. It sounds like the kind of business that gets people hurt. Idilio walked around his desk and stood in front of her. You're right. It is. But that's why you're safe. That's why Mia is safe. Because I'm the one who handles the dirty work. Yolanda's chest tightened. And what happens when the dirty work comes to our door? What happens when someone you've wronged decides to come after you, and they see us? See Mia. Idilio's expression softened. I've been doing this for a long time, Yolanda. I know how to protect what's mine. But what if I don't want to be yours? The words were out before she could stop them. What if I don't want to be part of this world? Idilio's eyes darkened. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. You already are. You've been part of this world since the moment you kissed me in that alley. You chose me. I was desperate. And now you're not. You're here. You're safe. You're with me. He reached out and took her hand, his grip firm but not painful. You can't undo this, Yolanda. You can't go back to being a bartender at Vespers, hiding from Marcus. That life is gone. Yolanda's eyes filled with tears. I know. Idilio's expression softened further. He lifted his hand and wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. Then why are you fighting it? Because I'm scared, she whispered. I'm scared of what this means. I'm scared of what you do. I'm scared of losing Mia. Idilio's hand moved to the back of her neck, pulling her closer. I won't let you lose her. I promise. He leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. And I won't let you lose yourself. Yolanda's breath hitched. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust him. But the fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach. Let me show you, he whispered, his lips brushing her ear. Let me show you what it means to be mine. Before she could respond, he kissed her. This kiss was different from the kitchen. It was slower, more deliberate. He wasn't taking, he was giving. He was showing her what he could offer. Safety, protection, desire. His hands moved to her waist, pulling her flush against him. Yolanda's hands found his shoulders, gripping the fabric of his shirt. When they broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Yolanda's heart pounded. She could feel the trust building between them, fragile but real. Come with me, Idilio said, his voice rough. He took her hand and led her out of the office, down the hallway to his bedroom. Yolanda's heart raced. She knew what was about to happen. She knew this was a point of no return. But she didn't pull away. She followed him into the room, her hand in his. Idilio's bedroom was different from the rest of the house. It was darker, more intimate. A large bed dominated the space, with dark sheets and a black comforter. There were no pictures on the walls, no personal touches. It was a room for sleeping and nothing else. He closed the door behind them, the click echoing in the quiet. He turned to face her, his dark eyes burning with intensity. Tell me to stop, he said, his voice low. Tell me to stop, and I will. Yolanda's mind screamed that she should. That this was a mistake. That she was crossing a line she could never uncross. But her body betrayed her. She shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. Don't stop. Idilio's lips curved into a dark, satisfied smile. He stepped forward, his hands moving to the zipper of her dress. Yolanda's breath caught as he slowly pulled it down, his fingers brushing her skin. The dress fell to the floor, leaving her in only her bra and underwear. Idilio's gaze raked over her, his eyes dark with desire. You're beautiful, he said, his voice rough. Yolanda's cheeks flushed. She reached out, her fingers fumbling with the buttons of his shirt. He helped her, pulling it off and tossing it aside. His torso was a landscape of muscle and dark ink, tattoos that covered his chest, his shoulders, his arms. Each one told a story, a mark of his world. Yolanda's hands traced the lines of his tattoos, her fingers brushing over the ink. Idilio's breath hitched, his hands moving to her waist, pulling her closer. Their bodies pressed together, skin to skin, the heat between them undeniable. Idilio kissed her again, deeper this time, his hands roaming her body. Yolanda's hands moved to his jeans, unbuttoning them, pushing them down. He stepped out of them, kicking them aside. Then he lifted her, carrying her to the bed and laying her down gently. He hovered over her, his dark eyes searching her face. You're sure? He asked, his voice low. Yolanda's heart pounded. She was sure. She was terrified, but she was sure. She nodded, her voice a whisper. I'm sure. Idilio's lips met hers again, and the world narrowed to the space between them. His hands explored her body, his touch firm and possessive, but also careful. He kissed her neck, her collarbone, her chest, his lips leaving a trail of fire on her skin. Yolanda's hands gripped the sheets, her back arching off the bed. Every touch, every kiss, sent waves of pleasure through her body. Idilio moved slowly, deliberately, his eyes never leaving hers. He was showing her what it meant to be his. Every touch a claim, every kiss a promise. When he finally entered her, Yolanda gasped, her nails digging into his shoulders. Idilio's breath hitched, his movements slow and deep. He wasn't rushing. He was savoring her, learning her body, marking her as his. Yolanda's mind went blank. There was no fear, no confusion, only the pleasure building between them. She wrapped her legs around his waist, pulling him closer, matching his rhythm. Idilio's control began to slip, his movements becoming more urgent, more demanding. Yolanda, he groaned, his voice rough with desire. She cried out his name, her body tightening around him. The pleasure built, higher and higher, until it shattered, washing over her in waves. Idilio followed her, his body shuddering against hers, his breath hot against her neck. They lay there for a long moment, tangled together, the only sound their ragged breathing. Idilio's arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. He kissed her forehead, a gesture so tender it made Yolanda's heart ache. You're mine now, he whispered, his voice soft but firm. Truly mine. Yolanda's eyes closed. She was exhausted, emotionally and physically. But for the first time in a long time, she felt safe. Truly safe. She was in deep. Deeper than she'd ever been. And she had no idea how to get out. The morning after, Yolanda woke up alone in Idilio's bed. The sheets were cool on the other side, the pillow dented but empty. She sat up, the silk sheet pooling around her waist, and looked around the room. The sunlight was cutting through the blinds, painting stripes on the floor. It was quiet. Too quiet. She got up, pulled on one of Idilio's dress shirts. It was huge on her, the sleeves hanging past her fingertips, and walked out of the bedroom. The hallway was empty. She checked the guest room where Mia was staying, but the door was open, the bed made. Her sister was already gone, probably to the kitchen or to the living room. Yolanda's stomach twisted. She felt exposed, vulnerable. The night before had been intense, a line crossed. Now, in the harsh light of day, she felt the weight of that decision. She found Idilio in the kitchen, dressed in a fresh suit, sipping espresso. He looked up when she entered, his eyes scanning her in the shirt, a flicker of something. Approval? Possessiveness? Crossing his face. Morning, he said, his voice calm. Morning, Yolanda replied, her voice tight. She poured herself coffee, her hands shaking slightly. Where's Mia? Out with a friend. I arranged it. She's safe. Yolanda nodded, her back to him. So, last night. Idilio set his cup down. Last night was inevitable. Yolanda turned to face him. Inevitable? You make it sound like it was written in stone. It was. From the moment you kissed me, it was. He walked toward her, his steps measured. You're not a mistake, Yolanda. You're a choice. My choice. Yolanda's throat tightened. And what if I don't want to be a choice? What if I want to be a person? A person with a life that isn't defined by you. Idilio stopped in front of her, his dark eyes intense. You are a person. You're the most real person I've ever met. You're messy, you're complicated, you're fierce. That's why I chose you. He reached out, his hand cupping her cheek. You're not defined by me. You're defined by you. I just want to be part of your story. Yolanda's eyes filled with tears. You say that, but you're the one who controls everything. You control where Mia is. You control my job. You control my safety. You even control my tuition. Idilio's expression softened. I'm not controlling you. I'm protecting you. There's a difference. But you're right. I've made decisions for you. I've taken away your choices. He dropped his hand, his gaze steady. So here's your choice, Yolanda. You can walk out that door right now. Take Mia, go back to your apartment, go back to your old life. I'll even pay for your tuition for the next 4 years. No strings attached. Or you can stay. You can stay with me, and we can figure this out together. Yolanda's breath caught. He was giving her an out. A real out. No threats, no guilt, just a choice. She thought about it. She thought about walking out the door, back to the life she knew. The life where she was constantly looking over her shoulder, where every dollar was a struggle, where her future was uncertain. Then she thought about staying. About the safety, the stability, the connection she felt with Idilio. The way he looked at her like she was the only person in the world. I want to stay, she said, her voice barely a whisper. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. I need you to promise that you won't try to fix me. I'm a mess, and I'm okay with that. I don't want you to clean up my life for me. I want to clean it up myself with your help, but not your control. Idilio's lips curved into a faint smile. I can do that. I'll be your partner, not your savior. Yolanda nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. And I need you to promise that you'll always be honest with me. About your work. About the risks. I can't live in the dark. Idilio's expression turned serious. I can't promise you that. Some things I can't tell you. It's for your safety. But I can promise that I'll never lie to you. If I can't tell you something, I'll say I can't tell you. It wasn't everything she wanted, but it was honest. And honesty was what she needed. Okay, she said, her voice steady now. Then I choose to stay. Idilio's eyes softened. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. Yolanda buried her face in his chest, breathing in his scent, cologne, espresso, and something that was just him. They stood there for a long moment, holding each other. The tension between them was still there, but it was different now. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise. When they finally pulled apart, Idilio's hand found hers. Come on, he said. We have a meeting to get to. A meeting. A business meeting. With Marcus. Yolanda's stomach dropped. Marcus? Why? He wants to apologize. He wants to make sure there are no hard feelings. Yolanda's eyes widened. You're going to make him apologize to me? Idilio's smile was dark. He's going to apologize. And he's going to make a donation to a nursing school in your sister's name, as a way of making amends. Yolanda stared at him. You're doing this for me? I'm doing this for us. So you can start to heal from what happened. So you can see that your past doesn't have to define your future. Yolanda's heart swelled. He wasn't just protecting her, he was helping her rebuild. He was giving her the power back, piece by piece. Okay, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Let's go. The meeting with Marcus was held in a neutral location, a private dining room in a high-end steakhouse downtown. Idilio had chosen the place carefully. It was public enough to be safe, but private enough for the conversation. Yolanda sat beside him, her hand resting on his knee under the table. She was nervous, but Idilio's steady presence calmed her. Marcus arrived with 2 of his men, but they were left outside the room. He walked in alone, looking pale and sweating slightly. He didn't meet Yolanda's eyes at first. Idilio, Marcus said, his voice tight. Yolanda. Thank you for meeting me. Idilio gestured to the chair opposite them. Sit. Marcus sat, his hands trembling on the table. I want to apologize, he began, his voice low. I was out of line. I shouldn't have come after you, Yolanda. I was desperate, and I took it out on you. It was wrong. Yolanda stared at him, her heart pounding. She had expected anger, maybe fear. But this? This was genuine remorse. I accept your apology, she said, her voice steady. But I need you to understand something. What I did was wrong. Moving product was wrong. But I did it for a reason. I was trying to give my sister a future. I made a mistake, and I've learned from it. I won't make it again. Marcus nodded, his eyes wide. I understand. And I want to make it right. He pulled a folded check from his pocket and slid it across the table. This is for the nursing school. A donation in your sister's name. It's not a loan. It's a gift. Yolanda picked up the check. The amount was $25,000. More than enough for Mia's tuition and then some. Thank you, she said, her voice thick. Marcus stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. I'll leave you two alone. And Yolanda? I won't bother you again. You have my word. He walked out, leaving the check on the table. Idilio watched him go, then turned to Yolanda. How do you feel? He asked. Relieved, Yolanda said, her eyes on the check. And empowered. I faced him, and I didn't break. Idilio's hand covered hers on the table. You never would have broken. You're stronger than you think. Yolanda looked up at him, her heart full. Thank you. For this. For everything. Idilio's lips curved into a soft smile. You're welcome. Now, let's go home. Mia will be waiting. They drove back to the house in comfortable silence. When they arrived, Mia was in the living room, watching TV. She jumped up when they walked in. How was your meeting? She asked, her eyes bright. It was good, Yolanda said, hugging her sister. Really good. Mia looked between them, sensing the shift in the air. Is everything okay? Yolanda exchanged a look with Idilio, then nodded. Everything is okay. In fact, it's better than okay. She handed the check to Mia. This is for you. For school. Mia's eyes widened as she read the amount. What? How? Where did this come from? It's a donation, Yolanda said carefully. From someone who wanted to make amends for a mistake. It's yours, no strings attached. Mia hugged Yolanda tightly. Thank you. Thank you so much. As they pulled apart, Idilio spoke. Yolanda and I have something to discuss with you, Mia. Mia's eyes flicked to Idilio, then back to Yolanda. Okay. Yolanda took a deep breath. I've decided to stay here. With Idilio. I want to build a life with him. And I want you to be part of that life. You can stay here, or you can go to school, but you'll always have a home with us. Mia's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really, Idilio said, his voice gentle. You're family now. Mia hugged Yolanda again, then surprised Idilio by hugging him too. Thank you, she whispered. For taking care of my sister. Idilio's arms wrapped around her, a rare moment of softness. Always. That night, after Mia went to bed, Yolanda and Idilio sat in the living room, a bottle of wine between them. You're sure about this? Yolanda asked, her voice soft. About me? About Mia? About everything. Idilio set his glass down and took her hand. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You're not just a choice, Yolanda. You're my future. Yolanda's heart swelled. She leaned in and kissed him, a slow, deep kiss that spoke of promises and beginnings. The next few months were a whirlwind of change. Yolanda continued working at the vault, but now she did it by choice, not necessity. She enrolled in online classes for nursing school, her tuition paid for by Marcus's donation. Mia thrived, her grades improving, her confidence growing. Idilio was true to his word. He was her partner, not her savior. He gave her space to make her own decisions, to learn from her mistakes, to grow. He was still protective, still possessive, but he respected her boundaries. He was the steady rock to her messy, beautiful chaos. One evening, about a year later, Yolanda came home from a shift at the vault to find Idilio waiting for her in the living room. He was dressed in a dark suit, his expression serious. "What's wrong?" she asked, her heart skipping a beat. Idilio stood up and walked toward her, his hands behind his back. "Nothing's wrong. In fact, everything is right." He dropped to one knee, and Yolanda's breath caught. He pulled out a small velvet box and opened it. Inside was a simple, elegant diamond ring. "Yolanda Ferris," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You walked into my life in an alley, and you've never left. You've shown me what it means to be loved, to be challenged, to be truly seen. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to build a family with you. I want to be your partner in every way. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Yolanda's face. She nodded, her voice a sob. "Yes. Yes, I'll marry you." Idilio slid the ring onto her finger and stood up, pulling her into his arms. They kissed, a kiss that tasted of love, commitment, and a future they were building together. 2 months later, they were married in a small, private ceremony at the house, with Mia as the maid of honor. It was simple, intimate, and perfect. A year after that, Yolanda gave birth to twin boys, Leo and Marco. They were healthy, beautiful, and the center of their world. Idilio was a devoted father, softening in ways Yolanda never imagined. He was still the same man, protective, possessive, intense, but now he had a new purpose, his family. Yolanda had come a long way from the desperate bartender in an alley. She was now a wife, a mother, a student, and a partner in a life she had chosen. She had faced her past, owned her mistakes, and built a future she could be proud of. One evening, as she rocked her twin sons to sleep, Idilio came into the nursery. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "They're perfect," he whispered, his voice full of awe. "They are," Yolanda said, leaning back against him. "We did this. We built this." Idilio kissed the top of her head. "You built this. I just helped." Yolanda smiled. "We built this. Together." They stood there in the quiet nursery, holding each other and their sons, the world outside fading away. Yolanda had found her safe place, her happy ending, and her family. She was no longer just a bartender in trouble. She was Yolanda Monaldo, and she was exactly where she was meant to be. Sometimes, the scariest choices lead to the most beautiful outcomes. True strength isn't about never falling, it's about how you get back up. Love isn't about fixing someone, it's about standing beside them as they find their own way. Family isn't always blood, it's the people who choose to stay. Hey, if you're watching, hit subscribe and let me know what city you're watching from. Which part of the story stayed with you the most?